Exactly. And the other problem that I find coming up now, and it's just a recent thing I've kind of become aware of in this situation, is that I realize that now the way that bands release the music, it doesn't matter how good the band is, 9 times out of 10, because they release like 3 or 4 singles off of any album that they are working on, by the
Mm.
time that album comes out, those 3 or 4 songs are almost unlistenable to me now.
Acadia After Dark is a horror podcast, and as such, may not be appropriate for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I'm very happy to be with you tonight. This is the Reverend Redbeard, and this is the Acadia After Dark podcast. If you are listening on YouTube or Spotify, please do go and drop a like or share it with a friend. Rate us, it helps the show out. If you aren't listening on there, you can find us over on acadiaafterdark.com. That'll be our main website for finding future communications. We're also moving a lot of our content over there at the same time, so definitely check it out. This week, very happy to be joined by an old friend of mine and one of the only other people with credits on the show, Billy. He wrote our intro music, which people have complimented quite a lot, which is pretty awesome. Billy, how's it going, buddy?
That's pretty sweet to hear. I like that. I didn't know.
It's awesome. 30-second clip, and that's probably one of the most complimented things on the channel.
It's probably the most complimented thing I've done musically.
Well, Jesus, man. I like your music. We played music together for quite some time, and I've listened to a lot of your tunes. I'm a big fan. Hopefully, we'll get to talk a little more about that on the show. But before we get into some of the specific topics, why don't you just give people a brief introduction? What do you do, and what are you all about?
Yeah, my name is Billy Lever, and I would say I'm a music fan first, musician later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense, and I definitely dig it. It's one of those things, you and I have talked music a ton. Comes with the territory, obviously. Met you a few years back when you guys reached out to me looking for a drummer for Incandesca.
Yep.
And you and I hit it off, obviously. We're good friends, have a lot of common interests, share a lot of the same hobbies and stuff like that. We're finally, we played in a band for a couple of years together, had some highs. I felt moderate amount of success as a band. Then things kind of drifted for each of us and the members of the band, having our own, things come up at the time. I kind of stepped away from music. Others, shifted gears in what they wanted to do. But you definitely are one of the most talented musicians I know, and great songwriter, great lyricist, fucking amazing vocalist in general. So that's feather in your cap if you want to hold on to that. Oh, shucks, I know. But yeah, now that we're all caught up on those sort of things, buddy, got a few questions for you because we've seen a few things that you've been up to recently and wanted to talk to you a little more about it and then get some of your stories because you're one of the people that got a hold of me and mentioned you have some stories to share. So we'll definitely get to that at the later portion of the show.
Yeah, a couple of them.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing them because I'm always, especially when they're like people I know and stuff. So that's kind of adding another element to it because it's one thing when a random person tells you some weird shit that happened to them. It's another thing when it's somebody you know personally,
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about what you've been up to. So you after I got out of Incandesca, you found a couple of new members. Were able to get it going for a little while there. You guys did release some pretty awesome songs. I heard the re-recording and the album that you released. shortly after you got back together, and you had the new drummer, the new guitarist, and bass player, and that was awesome. Great
Yeah,
fucking music.
I thought we had a really good thing going. The first couple shows were awesome.
Yeah. So with that one, was that like leftover Incandescent material, or was that like newer stuff you had been working on and you just wanted to get it on record?
There isn't too many like songs that were left over. The ones that were left over, Chris took with him to his band Kaiju's Light.
Sure.
But no, I basically ended up finding myself in the position of being the primary songwriter, which I liked. I came up with some material that I was really stoked on. You know, it's a great feeling when you write something and you're like, if I didn't write this, I feel like I'd be a fan of this.
Yeah, that's always a good sign when you pull off something that you're yourself is going to enjoy. That's a good sign.
Yeah, Chris and I used to do that sometimes, and we'd record one song and we'd nerd out about it, and that was a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you a little self-satisfaction, and you're heading in the right direction when you're able to do that. Yeah, I'm not surprised, knowing how talented you are, that you did write that stuff yourself. But it is like it's a different sound from the Incandesca that we were playing when I was in the band. But it's also, as I told you when I messaged you about it, it's a very solid sound. And I really dug like the fact that you were able to pull it more out of the trenches of the metalcore and make it a little more post-hardcore, a little more emo at points, but still keep that hard edge. I really dug that. Super cool to hear.
Yeah, the feeling I really wanted to evoke with the new stuff was this was something I wanted to do even when we were together as a band. I wanted to lean more into a sound that's like in your face, but also makes you in your feels.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
You're crowd killing, but you're crying at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. You want those mosh pits not just be bloody, you want tears as well. That makes a lot of sense. And I dug that. I very much enjoyed that sound. And that was kind of one thing that, like, I feel like, with Incandesca, we had a very unique mixture of sounds in that band.
Yeah.
And at times it was kind of like, there was a little bit of a whiplash effect with from one song to the next. I feel like the newer stuff that you did after that was a little more consistent and like had a little more measure to it, which I myself as a musician always like. I know that it's kind of a different style of songwriting, but it was always something that I gravitate more.
I think a big part of that was the Incandescent stuff that we played together and that I was just playing recently. Like it was written over the course of like a decade,
right
here and there, and like the sound changed with our music tastes, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you figure you're growing with your taste as well as musicians over the course of a decade. It's definitely going to be a wide range for sure.
Yeah, the first song we ever wrote was a song called Magic Warrior Juice, and that was like thrashy death metal, almost kind of death clockish.
Yeah.
And then I think the very next song we wrote sounded like a Atreyu. So it's pretty eclectic.
Which song was that? Like, I remember Magic Warrior Juice because that was one of the first ones you guys sent me. It was like, this is what we want you to check out.
Yeah, most drummers were like, this is insane. I cannot do this.
I was like, I can figure something out. I can't guarantee it's going to be exactly what the fuck Chris did here because I don't know what he's doing.
No, that was full on murder.
Yeah, that was the thing. Is like a lot of that stuff. It's like, when you're not realizing that you're going to be paying 200 beats per minute for freaking 3 minutes straight, then it might seem like a good idea, but it's just the way it is, though. And that was, when I first came into the band, I even told you, I was like, it's like some of this stuff is just going to be like balls to the wall, and there's not really a speed limiter on that. But then you definitely like. The stuff on Destronomer, for instance, like there was a lot more control to that. It was a lot more. There were songs where you went fucking balls out, but there was definitely a little more melody to things. It was a little more controlled, and it's fucking such a good sound that I thought we had going there.
Yeah.
And I feel like definitely the music held up. I think it was just the difficulty of like the area, and B, just like living conditions for like all of us. Like we were having like constant fucking vehicle troubles between one member of the band to the next.
Yeah.
We're all in our fucking, like we're all in our middle stages of life, and like all have like, individual like things going on, which in the best of circumstances is fucking hard, let alone when you're a fucking, band that's trying to come up in the world and do shit with it. It's
Yeah, I
kind of
know.
one of those things.
I know I had a list of things that I wanted to do that I thought were, pretty modest. Like I just wanted to record an album in like a legit studio because like over the last 20 years, I feel like, well, no, I've never been in an actual studio. The closest I've come was when Chris and I, with the original lineup of Incandescent, recorded at UMO. That's the closest I ever came, and that never even got released.
Damn. Somebody missing out on that stuff. I'm sure that would have been something.
Oh, it was awesome. We spent a week in the studio.
Wicked cool. And did you just have like a student set that up for you, or did you have to pay somebody?
It was our drummer's like end of year project, I think.
Nice. Damn. Well, that's too bad you couldn't have got something out of that. I mean, shit.
Yeah,
Have some sort of recording to play with.
It was like a week or so after we'd done it. I went back with a thumb drive and was told that they wiped the hard drives.
Why? Like, why would you do that? That's like, God damn it.
Yeah, they said, "Oh, it's routine. You should have backed it up sooner."
Yeah, no, like, yeah, I don't even know what the hell to say about that, because like I can't imagine a school being that fucking on top of that shit, knowing how half of these places operate. You know what I mean? That feels like malicious compliance at a certain point.
Yeah, I can't imagine it myself, but that's what I was told.
Yeah. Well, you can't argue with them. I know how that be. So other music you've been doing recently, you've been working on some solo stuff with Colorfully Speechless. That's your solo project, everything produced, written by yourself. You got any recent tracks on that? I haven't been following too closely. I usually catch most of my updates via Spotify, and if I don't see it there, then I'm kind of like blind to the world. What's going on with Colorfully Speechless?
Well, initially, I started the project with, I think it was like 8 or 9 songs that they demoed out with hopes to find some band members.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't really pan out. So I kind of lost steam for a while, but I picked it back up and figured, hey, I've gotten all this experience, writing songs for Incandescent. I'll try and do the final product myself. So right now, I'm working on finishing the full-length album, The Lonesome Frequency.
Yeah.
But I'm also juggling another album in addition to that.
I remember you mentioning the Lonesome Frequency before, and I had told you that was just such a dope name. Like, I was like, I just love the fucking name of that album in itself. So that one I knew about. So you have another one you're working on. Is it also like Colorfully Speechless, or is this just another project?
I have a really bad problem with making multiple projects and not finishing one.
Yeah, I can definitely relate.
So yeah, I have 3 different Color Me Speechless things, albums that I'm juggling at the moment.
Nice.
And I'm just kind of putting the songs out as I finish them for each individual one. So it's sporadic as to what gets released for what.
Oh, so everybody that does enjoy the music, they're just gonna have to hope that that song they really hooked into and spoke to them is on that album when it finally.
Yeah,
like I like the idea of the roll of the dice, but I'm just like, how do you manage it all? Because I mean, it's a lot of work when you're just trying to produce one album yourself, but then you got, multiple ones that you're working on and you're keeping track. Are you like sticking to like a theme for each one, or are you just kind of seeing what feels right?
Yeah, kinda. I started trying to focus myself on the whiteboard. I've written down album names and all the tracks.
Nice.
With the Lonesome Frequency, I feel like those songs kind of encapsulate a moment in time, which was, living on VZ Street, not feeling so great with mental health. The album art is actually out my bedroom window.
Oh yeah.
I thought was appropriate.
Yeah.
I've only released one song for that so far. It's called Reclaiming Youth. And it was actually an unfinished demo from the demo sessions that I found, and I finished it, and I was like, oh, this would be a great album opener. So that's out.
Yeah. Well, hell yeah. We're going to be looking at that one pretty soon here. I'm looking it up on Spotify at the moment. I want to make sure I get to listen to it right after the show. It's like I was telling TJ, it's like if I haven't already heard it, then I need to listen to it immediately. Otherwise, I'm not going to fucking do it.
Yeah.
Because of the radio stuff. It's one of those things, like, you have it on Bandcamp?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing that. Like, I feel like Bandcamp is a good platform for me to be releasing my ideas before they're like fully finished. So because I can just, there are so many songs that I've had a few dozen revisions and no one's the wiser.
Yeah. Well, I know that was a thing that we regularly discussed in Incandesca. Like, I think the third time that you rewrote some songs, we were just like, Jesus Christ, can we please not look at the song again?
Yeah.
Like some of them, obviously, you write it, and it's only like, you wrote it 5 years ago. You wrote it a certain way. You learn something new, or your musical taste change, and you want to kind of retool something. You know how that is. It makes sense to tinker with shit. Songs are going to naturally change over time. It's not uncommon. You're right. Bandcamp, it's like there's a little more forgiveness there because, first of all, unless the people are paying for it, which, I mean, a lot of Bandcamps, have free options out there for people. And if you're putting music up there and people are just going on and listening to it to just get exposure, well, then it also gives you a captive audience to kind of try out new shit. Where Spotify, you're committed. Like, you put up a fucking song or something on Spotify, well, you're paying for it. Like, you're invested in it.
Yeah, I intend to when I feel like the album is finished, to upload it to Spotify. But where it's still kind of in the works, I'm much more comfortable going the Bandcamp route.
Sure. Absolutely. Makes perfect sense to me. That, and you can always, if you ever needed to fund anything with it, Bandcamp's also good for that shit. I mean, I know that was a big benefit to it for us back when they first started it, was that you had that ability to crowdfund shit with it. You could get a little more exposure, and it was a good landing page in general for music artists, where anything else, there's no central fucking hub when you're on Spotify. If you're like a Spotify artist, you still got to be paying for a fucking website somewhere. Otherwise, people aren't going to know how to find you. And that's one thing that Bandcamp kind of covered all the bases for people. So good that that's a good place to start. Definitely looking forward to hearing more of it.
I was actually looking through. I found on Bandcamp that you can search through by state. So I was looking through a bunch of local music the other day. That was pretty cool.
No shit. I did not know that. And that makes me really excited to go and look at that, because now maybe I can find, because I host the coffee house there. Well, we like to have local music, but if local musicians don't send it into the station to get it approved by us, it's kind of one of those things where we don't find it. But Bandcamp having an option to filter by state sounds pretty fantastic. I could just go through there and find some random fucking folk artists in Maine and start tagging them and shit. That'd be great.
There's actually quite a few of those.
I'm sure there is, dude. We used to have an insane scene for just all music up here, but especially country and folk. It used to be massive up here. And I mean, over the last few years, I'm sure it's still big, but it's not what it was because, less venues around that play smaller groups, smaller bands, or anything like that. You've seen how it has been since the pandemic up here. Keeping a fucking business running for more than a year is almost impossible now. Like if you're a restaurant or a bar or something like that, you got to have some major money behind you outside of the state, or it's just almost impossible to stay afloat now. It sucks.
Yeah, and a lot of the guys that I like, local musicians I grew up like watching play live and buying their music, they they're all burnt out and want nothing to do with music now.
Yeah, that's unfortunately kind of how I ended up where I am in the podcast and radio space, because I just got so burnt out on the grind of it all. And to be 100% honest, I mean, I bitched about the grind before in just like music and shit like that, even though I didn't have nearly as much of the burden as I probably would. And now I'm running this fucking show here, which is like so much more work. And I'm constantly just like, I sleep like 5 hours a day, and I'm like, I'm working all the rest of it. I'm just like, this isn't any better. But for some reason or another, like I was saying to you earlier, it kind of feels like it's like a little different. And so I justify it in my own head as being better. I know with, a lot of the stuff that we were doing with like Incandesca and stuff like that towards the end, especially with like, trying to book shows and shit. Like there are so many, like, well, there's only so many venues in the area. There are so many bands. It's such a cornered market up here. And it's like, you have fucking like 15 bands that are in the local area and 3 places to play. And that was the struggle for the longest time.
And unfortunately, there was barriers with the style of music we were playing as well.
Yeah, that certainly happens. I mean, I'm sure that if you were a country or a rap band or something, you probably have more avenues open to you than if you're a heavy metal band or, deathcore or whatever the hell else happens to be the thing of the week. I mean, we weren't as bad as some other bands, but just because of the fact of like the groups you're playing with and stuff like that,
we're heavier.
It's harder. Yeah, we're heavier, and that's one of the things. And it definitely narrows where you can play. But you know how it was back in the day. We really had like, back in the day, we had Aura, we had the Cave, we had Ushuaia's or, Ultra Lounge, whatever they chose to call it. You had the community centers, you had the little indie shows that would pop up here or there. You had Queen City, you had like multiple choices for establishments that would all book heavier bands.
Yeah.
Now, who is there really? Because I was like, aside from like the people that just own their own booking agencies and put on shows in whatever venue will rent out to them, I don't know of any places that actively seek out heavy artists anymore, and it sucks.
No, I've heard Hey Sailor, this place called Hey Sailor has started doing heavy metal days. I forget, it's like a Wednesday or something. Chris and is doing that. Yeah.
Huh.
I
had not heard of that place.
And the King of Nightmares is actually doing their CD release, I think, there.
Oh, okay, yeah, probably. TJ didn't mention the name of the place for the, or I don't remember him mentioning the name of the place. I just remember him saying that they had it. For some reason, I thought it was somewhere else. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look that up now because I'm kind of wanting to check out that place. I've never been there before. Weird. Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, part of me is like, I liked going to shows. You and I talked about it before. Is I like going to shows and everything like that, but it was just like, there was such a fucking like time commitment when you knew you were going to drive an hour and a half to get to a show. You were going to be there the whole night playing the show or watching the show. Then there's going to be another hour and a half, 2 hours back. And a lot of times we would be like having a carpool, or we were like, one of us would be working the next day, or, we'd have shit going on. So it was like every damn show that we had for a little while there, it was just like, fucking middle of winter, we're like, are we even gonna make it in a snowstorm? Like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Bloodline will not survive the winter.
yeah, exactly. Like that was how it was getting to feel for a little while there. And now when I talk to other musician friends of mine, and they're just like, yeah, dude, we cut it back to like 5 shows a year. I'm like, dude, I totally get it, because I couldn't do any more than that now. I just don't think I could keep up with it, honestly.
No,
I'm looking at.
I remember Chris and I. After shows, sometimes like if he didn't have work, we'd crash to like 3 o'clock the next 3 p.m. the next day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think those were probably the only times in recent memory that I slept past like my normal alarm time in the mornings, and I would sleep until like fucking 10 or 11 in the morning. It'd be the night after shows because I'd just be so fucking wound when I got home, and then you crash out and your body just is like, nah, and just completely goes out. It's like you can check back in with me 12 hours from now. We might have another, go at this shit. But before that,
Definitely not something you can, well, I feel like you can maintain as you get older. I don't know.
It doesn't feel that way. I mean, there's got to be some conditioning involved, right?
Yeah, otherwise, how would like Metallica still be going in their age?
Yeah, I mean, I got to assume it's kind of one of those things that maybe your body kind of acclimates to it when you've been doing it for like your whole damn life. But me going back into it after I hadn't played for like 5 years at the time, get back into it. We start playing consistent practices. I started to get my like a little bit of stamina back. Then it was like, okay, let's get ready to like play shows again. Then I realized pretty quickly, like, shit, I'm still not quite up to like full length sets again. Took us a while to get back to doing 25 minutes, half-hour sets. Then by the time we were like playing headliner sets, I was like, okay, we're feeling all right again. And that was when like equipment issues started to pop up, or this started to happen, that started to happen. And I was just like, well, fuck.
Chris
I mean,
and I
honestly, yeah. Well, that was, brothers fight. It's
we've squashed that. That's pretty far behind us.
Yeah, I know you guys had mentioned that you had pretty much been able to resolve the majority of the conflicts pretty quickly after the band, kind of took a break for a little while there.
Yeah,
Because that was initially what we were doing, was just taking a break because none of us had the time, really. I told you before, you and I talked, via text a while ago about, I was just trying to accomplish something. Felt like things needed to be done and it wasn't happening. And so the podcast and the writing and stuff has kind of been my avenue to do that. You've done a lot of musical writing. You've been always a creative person. Recently, part of that conversation we had there, we had a conversation about something that you had mentioned that I thought was a wicked cool idea. And I was happy to see you have at least started on this leg of the journey. So tell me about the Pine State Music Archive.
Okay, so I actually initially started this back when I was in high school in 2011.
Yeah.
But coming back to it recently, I I realized I was not too hot on the name anymore. It was originally called 207 Indie Core, which, teenage me thought was edgy and cool, but like adult me is kind of like, that's kind of a little cringe and forgettable.
I get where you were coming from at the time, though. Absolutely understand. That would have hit for me about 20 years ago.
Yeah, the 207 indie because the bands were independent, and core because the majority of the bands I was uploading were of the core subgenres.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, back then it would have been a lot of the hardcore bands that came through the cave. So we all know that that's a pretty legendary scene around here. So I'm sure that was probably a good chunk of the music you were consuming at the time.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And, I told you when you had mentioned that, I thought that was a fantastic idea because, like, I've been in music since I was 15. Same as you were a teenager, you went to shows all the time. And how many bands have we seen that came and went through the area that over the years, they might only get one EP. They might only get a 4-song demo or something like that. And so, like, I thought the idea that you have of actually getting that music and making it accessible for fans that do remember it was a fucking great idea. Like, I don't know if there was any, because I saw, on your landing page on Facebook, and I do like the Pan State Music Archive, especially like your little bear logo there. That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
But I was like, the idea of having, hey, this band performed here. This is some of the songs. This is the details I have on them. Then leaving it to like the community, the internet, local main people in the music scene to help put pieces together, I think is a fucking great idea. I just think it's such a good thing. And I want to see it successful because I told you, it was like I know bands that I fucking saw perform when I was 15, 16 years old and was going to the fucking Elks Lodge to watch shows. And those bands have not been around for 20 some odd years now.
Yeah, and
I wish I had that music.
I've been attending local shows since around 2004, so I've seen quite a bit of bands.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
When I was young, whatever money I had, I was buying local CDs. And I would ask, I would even go so far as to, I think it got a little annoying with some bands, but I would always ask them what they were doing, if they had any new music, and how I could get a copy of it, because I kind of got a sense as I got older that some of these bands weren't so great about holding on to their own music, and I thought that was a shame because I get it from the perspective of like, we're teenagers, we're young and dumb, we're doing something fun, we're not taking it that seriously. But like when you're older, and I feel like you want to look back on, have something to look back on and be like, oh, my band actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah, or they're so much worse than you remember. That was my first few bands that I totally know what you mean about just like not keeping track of your stuff. Like I had my first band, we had like a 3-song demo that went on MySpace, and that's probably the only place that ever saw that. It's been gone for 20 some odd years, lost to the ether somewhere, and it's probably never going to turn up again. But I never kept track of that myself.
No, I know a lot of the stuff I wouldn't have if I hadn't like used some programmer website to rip the audio back in the day from a MySpace page.
Yeah, I mean, had to make do, right? When you were putting together those playlists on our old MP3 players and burning our CDs and shit back in the dark ages, we kind of had to do whatever we could, and the pirate flag was flying high at that time, I'm sure. That was always like my go-to, is like if I couldn't get it from the band, it was their MySpace page was now open for pillaging.
Yeah.
One of these days, though, they're all going to come back on us, and they're going to be like, yeah, it was a lawsuit. But, I mean, I'm sure nowadays the fucking copyright laws have probably far superseded any bullshit that MySpace was even thinking of at the time, because, man, as time changed. I mean, look at it now. We're talking to somebody the other day. It's like nowadays you see a lot of music recordings and stuff. And maybe you have your own opinion on this, but like more often than not, you see stuff now, it comes out in a single format. By the time that the single, and I get the business part of that. I think you and I probably talked about this before. Is like I understand the business of putting out singles via streaming, because like people are such a short attention span, and streaming has become like the medium to be able to get exposure, that a lot of times it's not worth the investment of a full studio album, because you're going to get more engagement off of doing one song every 3 months or whatever the fuck it works out to be. But for me, I've always been a person that loved fucking sitting down and having a full ass album to listen to. That's part of what I really loved about Destronomer, was that we had a full ass album of just, this is a consistent story that's being told through the album.
Yeah, I've always preferred.
You don't see that. Album's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's like a complete work, like a book that you can read beginning to end.
Exactly. And the other problem that I find coming up now, and it's just a recent thing I've kind of become aware of in this situation, is that I realize that now the way that bands release music, it doesn't matter how good the band is. 9 times out of 10, because they release like 3 or 4 singles off of any album that they are working on, by the time that album comes out, those 3 or 4 songs are almost unlistenable to me now. Like, I will get sick to fucking death of the songs before the album ever hits the shelf to where I could listen to the whole thing and enjoy it straight through. So now I just had to go away from listening to singles altogether because I've had so many albums recent years. Like the last 2 years, I'll have entire albums ruined for me because I'll hear like the best track on the album for fucking 6 months before the album comes out.
Yeah, I've definitely had that experience with a couple bands, but I was pleasantly surprised with the last All That Remains album.
Yeah.
Like, I heard one single off of that, and I think it's like the very first track on it. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. My favorite song off the album ended up being a song that wasn't even a single.
Good. I mean, that's a good sign if they have ones in their back pocket that like they don't release and they end up being of quality. But like a recent band that has like kind of bugged me a little bit about it, and I know I love them, is Starset.
Yep.
Because they've been working on an album for like 2 years now. They've released 5 singles off of it.
So it's half
the last, yeah, exactly. And I'm like, unless this is going to be a fucking 18-song album, which when was the last time you saw a band actually do that? I'm like, I don't know what they're doing anymore. Like, are they just releasing singles and they're just like dangling a carrot on the end of the stick with the hopes of an album coming next year? Or is this actually a tangible thing? Like, and I don't know the logic to it. Like, I get the logic business wise, but as an artist, I very much agree more with what you're saying about how it's like a book and you're telling a story and you have a beginning, middle, and end. You know, you have some consistency to it. I've always approached music that way. I don't know if this is the same thing now, but me, I'm like, makes no sense. I don't get it.
That's how I've always written. Like the first Incandescent album, Home Is Where the Heart Rots.
Yep.
I feel like that encapsulates a entire chapter of my life. Like those songs, the lyrical message behind a lot of them is like my teenage years through my early 20s.
Yeah. And then you grow as a musician. You're also putting that stamp on that part of your life as a part of that telling of your story. And it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, as an artist, especially because you're a person that expresses yourself through your art, through your music and stuff. That's kind of seems like a natural thing to me. So it makes it weird for me that so many artists nowadays seem completely disconnected from that stuff. Like, just weird sign of the times. Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know. I don't fucking well, we've been on music for a while because, of course, that's a favorite subject of the both of us. But the biggest subject of this show is the spooky shit. We talked about it before. Big part of why you had reached out to me about the show, because you said that you've had some unusual stories, and yours are even related to your previous musical endeavors. So, share some stories with us, Billy. Tell me what's going on.
Okay, so there was this band that I was in. We went under couple different names. Started out as Forget the Night, and then we later down the line changed our name to Secrecy Unspoken. We played out from here to like southern Maine. We played in Auburn a lot, even though we were based out of Newport.
The long haul.
Yeah. But there were 2 separate instances of like something beyond what I believed in at the time.
So as a baseline, not to cut you off, but as a baseline, do you believe in like ghosts, UFOs, supernatural and stuff, or are you more of a skeptic, just as a general baseline?
I didn't believe in ghosts and stuff prior to these experiences, but now I fully do. I believe that there's more to the world than we could possibly understand. And as far as aliens go, like, there are so many planets, so many galaxies. I feel like it's kind of small-minded to think that Earth should be the only planet capable of sustaining sentient life.
Sure. Yeah. That's kind of my logic on it too. I'm like, it's just a math game at a certain point. Like, there's just no reason we should be. So yeah, so it sounds like you got a pretty level head about this stuff. So tell me about this experience. What made you, what turned you around on this? Tell me what's going on.
Trying to think which one came first.
Hmm.
They were both while recording. Um,
Hmm.
the first one was we were recording an EP in Thorndike, way out in Thorndike, at this
Mhm.
guy's house, and the two guitarists, Brandon and Josh, were upstairs recording. I think Josh was playing bass at the time, and yeah, we had Brian Moore on guitar, who was producing the album, and I was sitting in the living room hanging out with the guy who owned the house's dog,
Mhm.
and the front door blows open. I go and I close the door and I sit back down with the dog, but then it blows open again, and the wind chimes on the deck start playing this really creepy melody. Like,
Huh.
I could not make this up. It was like, I was legitimately like freaked out. I ended up running up the stairs to where they were recording and being like, what the fuck just happened? Because I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
My eyes were
So it was
fixed.
like, was it like normal, like the chime noise, or was it like they were in a pattern, like aside from just the wind
It
blowing?
was like a straight up melody from like Silent Hill.
Oh, that's upsetting.
Yeah. And my eyes were immediately fixed to the church across the street.
Mm, yeah, yeah, that definitely always weirds you out. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I'm not sure of the legitimacy of it, but I ended up telling the owner of the house about that experience, and he told me that there was a pastor of that church who at one point hung himself from the steeple.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, I just as a general, like throwing it out there, because man, I've been studying some weird stuff across the state for the last few months. And one thing I can tell you is it's a surprising amount of times that I will hear a story like that, and I'll be like, "Yeah, but what are the odds?" And then it actually is fucking true. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say that, like, that might very well be the case, and I'd even like to look up and
Yeah, I
just see
never
if there was a church in Thorndike that had something like that happen. Because now I'm very curious.
yeah, I never looked into it beyond what I was told at face value.
Yeah.
But yeah, the gist of it was that it almost sounds like, Nightmare on Elm Street, because
Mhm.
apparently there's suspicion that this guy, the pastor, was touching some kids.
Yeah, that'll definitely track with a lot of the issues I've seen with such things happening in churches.
And then he offed himself, apparently.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I can't, be as PC as I can. I can't think of a better place for him. I hope he stubs his toe. But
Yeah.
that aside, I mean, that definitely sounds like a terrifying experience. I could definitely understand how that would fucking freak you out, especially if you're just sitting there hanging out and all of a sudden that happens, not once, not twice. Then you follow it up with the wind chimes and shit like that. Yeah, I'd be a little perturbed. So did the other thing that happened to you happen in that same setting, or was this like a later time that?
It was actually during the vocal recording sessions for the same album,
Yeah.
but it was at our guitarist Brian's father's house.
Mhm.
They Brian and his father and his sister all told me that they believed the house was haunted since they lived there, since they were kids. Like there was always a cold spot in the garage during like it could be 100 out in the middle of summer, and there'd always be a cold spot in the garage.
Yeah, those are always good. It's always interesting, but at the same time, I'm always like, what happened there?
Yeah. They always said that they would sometimes see a little girl or an older man out of the corner of their eyes. And one time I did see, I was using the restroom, and as I was leaving the restroom, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a little girl like run by.
Oh yeah, I hate that. I
And
mean,
this is something that's really cool to me. I think that little girl had my back because during the vocal recording sessions, our drummer Anthony was being something of a major dick to me. And like I was at a point where I couldn't record because I was so frustrated. But he was on the other side of the room. I'm like by the mic with Brian on the computer next to me, and he's rolling around in this chair, berating me. And it was like this force of energy just hit him, and he like flew from that side of the room almost through the window. He caught himself against the frame.
Oh damn!
But like his ass got tossed by some force.
Wow, that's fucking crazy. So like you're all sitting there, and then something just fucking out of nowhere just knocks him off his ass. Was he like standing, or was he sitting in the chair? You said he was sitting there across from you, right?
Yeah, he was sitting in the chair, and it like I remember watching it as it happened, and it looked like some force just like shoved him powerfully, and he went flying from one side of the room to the other, and he damn near went through the window, but he caught himself up against the frame.
So how did he react to this? Because like that sounds like something he would fucking notice.
He was freaked out.
Damn, dude. Like, and
but
this was in the same place or a different place?
This was at our guitarist's father's house.
Right. Wow, dude. Yeah, I mean, hey, like you said, shut him up, right? So that's a good thing. It does sound like that spirit, for whatever reason, must have liked something about your vibe. It was like, nah, shut this guy up, fuck him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's wild, though. I mean, I haven't heard. I have to say that's the first. I think that's the first one we've had on the show that has been an actual physical altercation, like with a spirit. Because we've had a few encounters where people like saw a ghost or heard shit. Haven't had anybody that actually saw something physical happen. So that's a first. So damn, man, bringing the game tonight. That's a fucking cool one. I can understand how that would definitely fucking make you kind of change your outlook on shit, right?
Yeah.
But what were you saying? I didn't mean to cut you off. Go rambling.
I said, yeah, I've seen stuff get thrown across the room, like, and there's no one there but me.
Oh man. Where was that? Is it another similar place, or is this a place you're consistently been? Because I know like my grandmother's place when I was a kid, I saw like so much shit when I was like a little kid before I understood what it was that I was seeing. That now I think about it as an adult, and I'm like, that was wild.
Yeah, there was an apartment in Keduskeg that I rented for about 5 years, and stuff would happen every now and then, but like. It'd be random occurrences, like I'd walk into the kitchen cupboard opens, and like a piece of Tupperware just flies across the room, spinning on the floor. I'm just like, what is it? What is the explanation for this?
Yeah, what are you trying to show to me right now, spirits? Like, Yeah, I honestly like that. Those ones are always like the kind of the weirdest ones to me because it's like, and I don't know how much of the stuff you've researched, but like me, I always look back at like what they always used to call as like residual hauntings versus intelligent hauntings. And if I'm looking at, it's like, well, a residual haunting doesn't know what fucking Tupperware is, so they're not fucking with that. And an intelligent haunting, it's like, what are you trying to do right now, bro? Like, like, what is the Tupperware flying across the room supposed to do other than make me fucking weirded out?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like I haven't seen in recent times, anyways. I haven't seen anything that like was able to physically move something. So like anytime that like that stuff happens, I'm like, I always am kind of skeptical. I'm like, well, could this cupboard have just fallen open? Could the wind have fucking blown something? But when you're talking about like a singular dish that just fucking comes out, doesn't just fall on the counter, it falls like across the fucking room on the floor or something like that.
Yeah,
That's kind of another level.
Handful of times from just that cabinet.
It just really had that one fucking one particularly figured out.
Yeah.
I love that idea. I mean, just this one ghost sees you, like doesn't do a damn thing until you're walking into the room, and it's like, here, pick this up. Just throws that shit out of the cupboard and it's like, do some dishes.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that being said, though, Kentucky is like haunted as fuck. Like there have been so many places I found up there. It's another of those towns in Maine where you drive into it, and I have this game that I love to play with the family when we go on road trips and shit, where we'll just roll into a new town that the kids and Jen haven't been to, and I'll be like, guess which building here is haunted? And Kendeskeg is one of those ones where you can drive through it and it's like most of these. Like, you just point down Main Street and it's like almost everything along the strip has something there.
Yeah, I lived right up the hill from the Quick Stop, like the only store in town.
Yeah, so it was a high traffic area. There's a lot of fucking people that have lived in that part of town.
Yeah, I was told that the property before it was a home, because it's a giant place. It was like I had like a 3-bedroom, 2 floors, 3-bedroom apartments, and it was split into like 4 different units. And I was told that at one point it was it started off as like a horse barn, and then it later became a home for women whose husbands went to war, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Like one of those, like, no, I can't think of what they're called. Not a halfway house, but I think I know what one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's something I've heard about. I'm not too familiar with it, but I've heard about there being places where families of men who would go to war would stay.
Yeah. It was like a hospice sort of thing, but like more specially geared. Yeah, I get what you mean, though. Yeah, like I said, Kentucky is one of those towns that it's a very old town. It's Maine has a lot of history to it. Every fucking place up here, I swear to God, is haunted in some way or another. So it's like, that's why every guest that I have on the show, I can pretty much guarantee they're gonna have at least one story to tell. And I've never had somebody that came on. It was just like I've never had anything fucking weird happen. And if they do, it's just usually because they just like aren't willing to admit it, even to themselves. Like I had people that came on the show and they're like, well, I don't really know. And then as we're talking, they're like, no, actually, you know what? There's this one time. Every time I'm like, well, that sounds pretty weird to me, dude.
Yeah. For me, with the stuff, like flying across the room, it's just like, once, okay, but like after the second, third time,
yeah. It's no longer a bad latch on the door and you're just stacking your dishes wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I dig the story. I definitely want to look up that place in Thorndike, though, because that one, I mean, having a church there, if there's like a fucking graveyard near that church, depending, if there's like anything nearby, or if it actually did have the occurrences like you were saying, That's stuff that's going to show up in a local paper. The fucking local historian's going to have that stuff, and that's like ripe for the picking for me because I consume that shit, and then I just turn it into more content for my channel now.
It was directly across from the house, right across the street.
That's pretty cool. That should be an easy one to find something on. I mean, if there's any legitimacy to it, I can usually find something pretty quickly, and I've just the area, like I said, there's just so much stuff out there, and they have like my best friends recently have been like newspaper.com and then like the local historical societies because they do so much of the heavy lifting for the stuff that I research. And like some of the stuff, the smaller things, they'll be like, yeah, we don't really have anything specific on like this particular thing, but they can usually point you to somebody that might. But a big story like that, like there's going to be newspaper articles. There's going to be some sort of a record, even if it goes back a while. There's definitely going to be something there. So I definitely want to look into that shit. That sounds cool as hell. Cool for the sake of content, not cool because there was potentially a priest doing god awful things that, were, a little too in line with his faith because that's become way too common of a thing in the last, my lifetime anyways. I'm sure it probably went on a lot longer than that. We all know. Speaking of that, the recent events of the week, fucking had, JD Vance killed the Pope. So I'll probably get I'm just saying that. I'll probably get fucking demonetized for that one, but So I don't know if you heard about that, but basically fucking the vice president fucking had a meeting with the Pope. Within probably like 12 hours of that, the Pope died. Which I'm not even a spiritual person that believes that like, oh, this is a sign or something. But that's a fucking sign of something because like, holy shit, man. Like how much like the guy is like, literally pieces out from this fucking world the next time after you fucking talk to him and a couple hours later and it's the goddamn Pope. I'd be like, I think I need to reevaluate some things right now. This is just the way. But the news headlines in general are just so wild nowadays that every one of them, that's the only reason I need to bring it up because I'm like, what used to be just like, a priest fucking doing something that in some small little town. It's just like an everyday headline of just wild shit happening. So I wouldn't be surprised if the ghosts that come up from this area in a few hundred years are just going to be even more messed up in general. But it's one of those things. I hope that, if you definitely... You're still doing music. You're working on a wonderful new project that I really hope continues to grow because I think it's just such a fantastic idea. I've told you that before, and I really do mean it now.
When I rebranded, my hope was for people to take it a little more seriously.
Oh yeah,
and if it gets enough traction, I was thinking it would be cool to like get shirts made and. Maybe do a podcast where I interview some of those guys who no longer do music.
Yeah.
Who were involved with some of those bands I loved growing up.
Yeah, I think that's such a cool idea. I fully support and endorse that idea. I want you to do that because it's like I said, I had so many of those bands myself growing up that I'm never going to get to listen to again. And I have no idea where to even begin finding that. And I think you're heading the right direction with the way you're going about things. And you've always been so passionate about the local music that, like I told you before, it really feels like that's like in your wheelhouse of things. If you're going to have something that you're like, a lot about, you probably know more about the local music here than any other person I've ever met in my fucking life. So if there was anybody I was going to say is got to be able to pull this together, I think it would be you, dude.
Yeah, I've actually been making a wish list of some bands I grew up watching that I would like to see if they have music out there because I would like to hear it again.
Yeah, that's a big motivator right there,
Even if they don't want me to post it, because I have been thinking about that. Like, there are some bands, who are still active. I'm not going to put their, what their current music that they're currently selling, anywhere. But if there's like old demos that they're not doing anything with, I definitely want that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I like the way that you phrase it as being an archive, right? Because when I think of an archive, it's like a museum. You're preserving the musical legacy. You're
Yeah.
not trying to take their new material and add it to some library of yours. You're trying to make sure that when they're no longer doing it, that music is still going to be around. And I think that's really admirable. It's a cool fucking thing. I want it to be a thing. I love the idea you have, the podcast stuff. Yeah, after we're on the air, I'd love to just pick your brain about a few more of those things because you have some cool ideas there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
over the years I've actually heard a lot of musicians tell me that they wish they had music that they'd written, back when they were in high school.
yeah, yeah. Oh, for sure. I can definitely
And
understand that, baby.
it's giving me something, a little bit of something of a feeling of fulfillment, because on occasion some of those musicians, I've had what they were looking for.
That's so cool. Yeah, you happen to have bought one of their EPs like 20 years ago, and now you're like able to bring it back for them.
Yeah. And like, I
That's
don't,
super cool.
on the other hand, like from the fans' perspective, I don't think that a lot of local musicians, it's probably for one reason or another, I I don't think they realize the impact that their music can have on people. Like, sure, it's something I was doing for fun when I was a teenager, didn't think much about it, but like,
Yep.
the people who actually listen to that stuff and get invested in it, like, I can honestly say that I was personally influenced as a songwriter and vocalist by some local bands that I grew up watching.
Soundbender, right?
I fucking love
That's one
Soundbender.
that's the one that I always fucking think of because they were like literally one of my first fucking metal shows I ever went to, and
Yeah,
they're still relevant. Like it's fucking wild, man. It's been like almost 30 years, and I'm just like the shit blows my mind.
yeah.
They're still
I messaged Jesse, their vocalist guitarist, a while back, and was like, you know how you keep doing, like, over the years they do one-off like reunion shows. I was like, you need to do another one of those, because every reunion show they've had since they broke up, I was too young to attend because they were at bars.
Oh, so now you're like, do one for me, finally, do
Yeah,
one for me.
they
Yeah.
literally broke up on my birthday.
Oh, dude, what the fuck?
Yeah, I was there at their last show, and it was my birthday.
No, not now, not now. Like
Yeah,
that's so bad, dude.
yeah, but
Especially when you're a fan of them. Like that's awful.
I literally have like all their CDs though. I have their very first album, High Downing, which I want to say came out in like late 90s, if not like early 2000s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like when I saw them for the first time, I think they had an EP and maybe one album, and I only had $3, so I was able to get their EP. And that was like an obsession of mine. Like that was my favorite goddamn album for the longest time. Like I was listening to that more than I was Mudvayne's LD50 when that dropped. That's how big of an album that was to me.
Yeah,
And it's just a random local band.
I was so into them. Like, I have stuff that I'm betting that a majority of other people haven't heard.
Oh, that's so cool. Well,
Exactly.
I mean, the archive is waiting because it's needed.
Yeah. I intend to upload everything Soundbender on there.
That's so awesome. So that's right now just a blog spot, right? You haven't been able to like. I'm just trying to see because I want to definitely link so that people can help to find that, and also so that if anybody in the area knows that, I want them to be able to contribute. So that's one thing I want to say to my listeners, because a lot of my listeners are from outside of Maine, but I do have a fair amount of people in Maine that listen, and this is a Maine broadcast. So listen, Pine State Music Archive, if you know of a local band, and it could be any genre, right? It's not just metal. I know you started out focusing metal. Is it only going to be metal and like hardcore, or are you planning on doing it for just like all Maine music?
Absolutely not. Like, all local music. Like, you can send me folk, country, right to my email, Pine State Music Archive at gmail.com.
Yes, I will be linking that in the description, the show notes, and everything. I'll also be putting it up on the website because I do a little visitors to the After Dark segment on the website every week. So they'll have your info so people will be able to look you up. Fans of the show, I definitely want y'all, if you haven't already, go check out what Billy's doing. He's got fantastic music, incredible songwriter, but also his Pine State Music Archive is just a really cool idea. I think music is something that needs to be preserved, especially in the era of digital media taking over things. I feel like we're all going to end up in a really bad situation in about 10 years when a lot of these licenses and websites start to come down that are the only places that have current digital media. We're going to end up in a situation where we're going to lose a lot of art very fucking quickly in a very short period of time.
Unfortunately,
I'm terrified of it. It started to happen, yes, and I don't think we're seeing it in mass the way we're going to in a couple of years, right? Because this is like we're on the tipping end of where the first wave of big digital media bands started to take off.
The stuff that, the stuff that I'm archiving, which is stuff that was on websites that have now closed.
Yeah,
like MySpace is no longer, for music anymore. Like it went through so many different iterations. You can't even listen to a song on, even if you can find it on the page. And
that's insane.
Pure Volume's gone. I don't think you can even listen to music anymore on like Last FM.
Oh yeah, geez, I can't even think of the last time that I saw a link for Last FM. Like honestly.
Actually found a buddy of mine's band from high school on a website called SoundClick, and I was surprised that was still up because the music that was on there was uploaded in 2002.
Wow.
And a lot of websites like that were around when I was in high school were like long gone.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I can't imagine a website that was around in the early 2000s still being active today or being in the same thing. I mean, even some of the biggest websites weren't even a thought at that point. So that's fucking crazy to see. It makes you wonder if somebody just fucking bought a domain and was like, I'm never going to let this run out. I don't care what happens. They just take it with their fucking grave where they're just like literally paying that fucking, $20 a year to just keep that thing running.
If you go on that website, SoundClick, it's definitely a blast from the past.
I kind of like the idea of that. Like, did you see that guy that started a new like MySpace clone?
No.
Yeah, there was a guy that he basically took like the exact model of MySpace and just made another website. And I can't remember what it's called. It's like literally basically just a different variation of MySpace, the title of it. But it's no algorithm. It's decentralized, and it's basically just meant to emulate like the same feeling that you had on like 2000s MySpace without any of the extra bullshit, the ads, all that stuff right now. And I'm like, that's a cool idea. I love the idea of that. I want stuff like that to kind of find a home again. But
that legitimately gets me excited.
It's fucking insane. I was really stoked, but I just know, and I've like become so cynical in my mind space of like how the internet is and how predatory these companies are, that they'll see that nostalgia and they'll be like, how can we manipulate this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I see it in everything now. It sucks. Like,
I can see a scenario where like someone buys it and it'll be closed in like a year or two.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if it's anything that does actually have some significant user base. Like if they can't collect data from it, they don't want it. And that's kind of where I'm always running to.
I've seen that happen plenty with like not music related, but Amazon competitors. Like there was this website that was around for a handful of years I used because I thought it was better than Amazon. It was called jet.com. Their logo was like purple, and their whole thing was the more you buy, the higher of a discount you get off your total order.
Oh, that's awesome.
They ended up getting bought out by Walmart and closed down.
Yeah, that was pretty common practice for the big companies. Like Amazon did it a lot with a lot of the on-time markets. Walmart did with a lot of their competitors. One of the big examples, and not to go on too much of a tangent, but if anybody wouldn't be too surprised, I know some people wouldn't be surprised to hear that Amazon is fucking awful. And they literally came up with a term for it back in the day. It was called predatory pricing, where basically they would intentionally fucking overprice items to drive a business out of fucking the market so that they could purchase it at a very low cost. They did it most famously to baby.com, which they then ended up basically outpricing them on things like diapers, where they had the business and the capital to be able to sell diapers at a loss. So they marked their own product down to where this other company just could not match it. And they did that for like a year. It drove this other business down to the point that its stock was worth a fraction of what it had been a year prior. And then they just bought him outright.
That is ruthless.
Yeah, and I'm just like, this is just shit that happens all the time now. It's not a wonder that the entire economy is based on like 4 companies. It's just, long story short, capitalism bad. No surprise to anybody that's listened to me for long enough. You should know my feelings now. But it's just one of those things. But yeah, I mean, I think that your idea with the Penn State Music Archive, I think it's a brilliant fucking idea. I want it to be successful. I want to see those music being preserved because I think it's a goddamn important thing. Just like radio, just like libraries, there's so many of these fucking media that we're losing in our lifetimes, and we need to do whatever we can to preserve it. So if there's anything I want fucking people that are listening to the show to take away from it, is enjoy physical media, consume it while we can, because it's going away, and they're trying to make it not a thing anymore. And things like the Pine State Music Archive are like our last hope of trying to sustain some of that shit, so it's not just lost to the sands of time.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Something I've been thinking about recently is live service video games and like mobile games that, they rake in the money for a year and then they close down. I'm always surprised the company hasn't been established yet. That's kind of like Criterion for movies.
Yeah.
But
their
just
whole take up those old games.
Yeah, reverse engineer them and resell them.
Yeah, if somebody wants to do that, I would absolutely love to be able to play Black and White 2 again, because that sounds fantastic. I would also enjoy it if they would fix whatever the fuck they did to that big Final Fantasy First Soldier game that I was so hooked on the first few months, and then they just canceled it. Or just stop fucking updating things. I don't even understand how you can have such a big game just go from where this is like the new thing to a year later it's just not anymore. But this is part of my frustration with being an older nerd and being into this stuff, is I'm constantly losing the things I enjoy.
Exactly. Yeah. There was a Final Fantasy game called Mobius. It was Mobius Final Fantasy, and it was worked on by like someone who like people who worked on 5 and 6, and like it was like a legitimate like standalone installment. It just required a constant internet connection, and then it's like you could have just removed the internet requirement and that game would have been perfectly fine to play even now.
Yeah, but some company decided they couldn't make money off of it, so they'd rather kill that.
Yep.
That's just, I don't understand. I mean, I do understand. I just don't like any of it. That's where I keep running into, is I'm like, none of this is ethical, and I'm expecting ethical, so ain't working for me. But hey, man, so this has been a fun fucking time getting to catch up. I have been really enjoying this. I'm super glad to be able to have you on the show. It was cool to hear some of your stories today. Do you have anything you would like to plug before we get ready to wrap it up for this episode? I know that I'm going to drop your links for Color Me Speechless as well as the Pine State Music Archive. Anywhere you want people to check out, or any places they can find you?
Just Color Me Speechless on Bandcamp and Pine State Music Archive.
Oh, yes. I will make sure that those are both linked. Y'all definitely be sure to go check it out, especially if you want to check out Billy's music. He is a great artist, and I cannot recommend his singing enough. It's a great thing. I think y'all will enjoy it. And as I said, he is credited with the music for the beginning of the show.
Yeah, if anyone's listening and you play drums or guitar and you like pop punk and emo, hit me up. Maybe we can do something.
Yeah. Actually, I know a few people that I may actually have that might have something contribute there, because I don't know how if they're looking for bands now, but I know a few of my friends are musicians and might be interested in that. So hopefully you'll have something to stir up from it.
Take Color Me Speechless and turn it into a band if I can.
That would be wicked cool. I think it'd be really unique. It'd be something different. Don't see a lot of that around here or in just live music in general. So I think it'd be really fucking cool, man. Well, hey, buddy, it's been great catching up. I really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing some stories and some knowledge. It's been great talking shop, talking music with you. I really appreciate it, bud.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hell yes, dude. Well, y'all, thank you for listening. This has been another episode of the Acadia After Dark podcast. As always, I'm the Reverend Redbeard. Keep those lanterns lit. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk soon. Hey y'all, it's Reverend Redbeard here again. Billy was gracious enough to let me borrow one of his songs to share with you. So coming right up, we've got It's Cooler to Care Than to Pretend That You Don't by Color Me Speechless. Enjoy.